Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to another episode of Justice for All Now. This is your host, Hena Zuberi, and you're watching us on Muslim Network TV, on Galaxy 19, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and various social media channels. Today, I would like to welcome you to a show where all my colleagues, our team leads from Justice for All, will be here today with me. We'll be talking about our work in 2021, taking a look back at the past year, and just what all we have planned for our advocacy work in each one of the campaigns. I'm really, I was looking through pictures today, 2 years ago. Today, we were at the Women's March. And really, were part of I was one of the leads for the women's contingent for the Women's March, for the Muslim women's contingent. And our cry was, Trump, get out the way. And as I reflect back on that and have some wonderful news to share with you today at the last day of the Trump administration, that the US government has finally declared the Uighur genocide a genocide. This is a call that we have been, with our Save Uighur campaign as Justice for All, have been asking for the past 3 years. And so I have sort of mixed emotions right now. And I do hope, as we look forward to the inauguration of the new president tomorrow, that despite local policies, despite local politics, that we can stand with our Uighur brothers and sisters in this momentously heavy moment today. So joining me today, first I'm going to call up our Burma Task Force lead and our UN Programs Director, Adem Carroll. We'll speak to each other for a few minutes about specifically about the Burma Task Force and the work that has been done in the past year and what we have planned for 2021. And we'll do that for each one of our colleagues, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Adem.
Wa alaikum salam.
How have you been? SubhanAllah.
Seems like I just spoke to you. but yes, I've been fine, and I hope the same. And yes, it's a challenging time. And I wish that, today we saw the genocide determination for the Uighur, very exciting, but I wish we would see that for the Rohingya, yes, which we've been asking. And our colleagues, many organizations, in fact, have sent out letters demanding that the State Department make that determination. Our fingers are still crossed. It is a genocide. And of course, making that determination will set in other things in motion in the government. Today I was on the phone with some people in New York City government, telling them about the determination and asking them if they would be willing to stop doing any business with genocide perpetrators. That's a project of one of our colleagues, but it's one that we support. Also, I got a letter, which I'd like to read to you just today, which is from the IOM in Bangladesh, because as the viewers probably know, we've been very concerned about these plans to send Rohingya refugees to an island off the coast, very isolated, quite possibly unsafe, called Basan Char. And we organized 120 imams last month to sign a statement to call on the government of Bangladesh to reconsider sending Rohingya to this island. And most of the UN agencies have been against it, but we were concerned that perhaps they might give in to pressure from the government. And so we got a message in response to my letter. Many thanks for your message. This is from Georgi Gigori, Chief of Mission, the IOM, which is the International Organization of Migration. It's a UN agency. Please allow me to assure you that we take this fire. It's a fire that just destroyed 500 homes in the camps in Bangladesh, and a lot of Rohingya are quite apprehensive that this was set. this fire was set to force them to go to Basan Char. Any security incidents in the camps we take very seriously. There is an investigation ongoing, and we hope to have an accurate finding on the causes of the fire in the near future. We, together with UN High Commission of Refugees and our NGO partners, are also in constant contact with local authorities to ensure that the needs of the affected populations are duly met. With regards to movements to the Basan Char Island, the UN position has not changed, and we remain committed to the need for a thorough assessment. Excellent. So that's good. So this is something we do. We always put pressure, and it's good to get a response.
Definitely. And people need to realize that individual letters make difference, but an organizational letter like that from an organization that has been working on the cause for this many years holds water with some officials. Others are harder to get through. And this is something that has been, I wanted to ask you, we had Shafi Rahman yesterday talking about this exact fire, and about his work documenting the Rohingya genocide. And this is a determination that has been called for. Their cases in the ICJ. Yesterday, there are two major developments that happened that I'd like to get your take on. One was the letter by the Arakan people, both the Rakhine and the Rohingya. So share with us, could you give us our readers an update on that letter, on that statement? And the other thing that I wanted to talk about was today, Burma and China and Bangladesh met again about the repatriation of the Rohingya people, but yet once again without Rohingyas on the table.
Right. Well, I can't give you a lot more detail than that. I'm glad you brought those up. But with the Rakhine project, it's very important to have a long-term vision of integration and peacemaking. Both the Rakhine Buddhist and the Rohingya Muslim communities have been targeted by the Burmese military. They have fought in the past, and there are tensions, but they've both suffered, and there's a great reason for them to join hands. And so this seems to be a very constructive project. And I was part of the call. It was Sunday night, very late our time, and listened in on plans. But it's ongoing, and it's very sensitive because, you have to get everyone's agreement. It's also important to build alliances and build solidarity between Rohingya and, for example, the Karen, who are still being attacked, and the Kachin and other minorities who have suffered. As far as the other issue, did you say China and Burma or Bangladesh? Sorry.
Yeah, China, Burma, and Bangladesh, all three met today.
Right. Well, as before, this is, this kind of agreement leaving out the impacted community is unfortunately all too common, but it doesn't work. And perhaps in the end, it's really about money and resources. If China is going to be behind some of the policy of Bangladesh, which we hope not, because given what China is doing to its own minorities, it's very hard to trust that they will be on the right side regarding the Rohingya and their repatriation. It's not a matter of building resettlement or rather repatriation centers. You can bring in Chinese workers and build all these centers. They're still prison camps. We have always asked for the Rohingya to be returned to their homes and their original villages, and also for their citizenship rights to be restored. Those are conditions along with safety. And so we don't really imagine that China has the Rohingya people's best interests in mind. However, let the dialogue continue.
I wanted to, so let's talk a little bit about what we have to look forward as Burma Task Force for 2021. The year coming ahead, what are the things that the task force is concentrating on, especially in the next few couple of months?
Well, first of all, as you know, heading the DC office, we've got to strengthen our relationships in Congress, those very same offices which were attacked less than 2 weeks ago. And with the House Foreign Affairs Committee now with new leader, with other champions still rising, we have to see who is going to promote new legislation in the new Congress. We may be combining legislations from the last Congress. And here we have Uighur. It was good again to see that the Uighur genocide was recognized, and we want to see the State Department recognize the Rohingya genocide. The other important matters include ongoing funding of the refugee camps, because the U.S. has been generous in that respect. And the Rohingya, as well as the Uyghur issues, have been largely bipartisan. However, sanctions have been weak up to now because Mitch McConnell, as leader of the Senate, blocked any strong legislation and blocked a whole range of pressure tactics that we could have been using to force, or at least convince, Myanmar to take back the Rohingya instead of warehousing them indefinitely in the camps. So now that Mitch McConnell, he will probably still try to block as much as he can using filibusters. So it's not that he's going away, but at least he won't be in absolute control of the Senate.
Exactly.
And I'm sure there are more things just having to do with education and think tanks and, really building this movement for the Rohingya people.
Definitely, yes. We had talked about this earlier. The education of the Rohingya, especially, this is something because there's a whole new generation being raised in the camps now, and what do they have to look forward to? What is, with the long-term goal of repatriation, these short-term goals have to be kept in mind. So thank you so much for your work on that, Brother Adem.
And we will be having a report coming out next month on this very issue, on the education of Rohingya, so that we don't have a lost generation. There have been no schools for Rohingya either in Rakhine State or in Bangladesh either, and we've got to change that.
Okay. Thank you so much. Stay with us so we can have a roundtable in a few towards the end of the show. Next, I'd like to invite our colleague, Brother Zahir Adil, who heads our Save India from Fascism team. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Zahir.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me.
Well, we had a very, very active 2020 as far as comes to advocacy for Indian minorities. So can you give us a quick recap of all that was accomplished in 2020?
And how much time do I have? That's probably the question to ask. Yes, the India project at Justice for All essentially began about a year ago. And we began actively working on India just about a year ago. But in that time, I believe we have accomplished a whole lot. We've filed many reports on prisoners of conscience with the United States agencies. Alhamdulillah, we have had success on a few of them, and we are hoping, and we will continue to work to get success on the others that we have filed. And I believe the total number that we had filed was about 36 at this time, and we are continuing to do that. In addition, we have sent, I'd say at least 5 or 6 different memos on different things that have been happening in India to the United States State Department as well as to Yusuf. The most recent one being about an attack that happened in Madhya Pradesh recently, and where a group of Hindutva activists, or we should just call them terrorists.
Not call them Hindutva activists. That terminology itself, I was reading that, I was like,
I apologize for that. Let's call them Hindutva terrorists, where they attacked a mosque, and then unfortunately the authorities have it has become a habit of authorities to take out to punish the victims rather than go after the ones who are the perpetrators.
Mm.
And after this happened, several Muslim households were actually demolished, and several people were arrested. Um, and that's the sad portion. It seems like it's not only the Indian central government, but also other state governments that are led by the BJP. They are more interested in punishing the victim rather than making sure that the victim gets justice.
Exactly. 5,000 are, and when we say use the word militants, we don't use it lightly. These are a lot of times they're armed, sometimes with sticks, sometimes with weapons, or they have police support, as you could see right there, where the place of worship was being attacked, and the police is just standing there. No one is stopping anybody. So there's these nationalist movements seem to have a lot of support from the state. Um, Looking forward to 2021, what are some of the key focuses that the campaign will be working on and highlighting?
Okay, that's a good question. I think one of the primary things that is needed is education, of course. And when I say education, I don't mean education of the Indian Muslim population that lives in the United States. No, we know what's happening,
Mhm.
but we have to really take this education beyond the Indian Muslims to the other Muslim communities, the Arabs, tell them why they are being affected, and also to mainstream American society because it is affecting them also.
Mhm.
What's been happening in America is that the same people who are running India now and the ideology is slowly being imported into the United States. Sometimes that introduction and that import is a soft import. So
Mhm.
it starts as a looking very benign, such as a Raksha Bandhan celebration somewhere or food distribution. But then it goes into political activism and then making sure that some of the other minorities that exist in this country do not get the same sort of say that they should, and also to change history so that the Indian history that is presented in the United States is not the true history anymore, but this contorted, distorted history that the RSS and other Hindutwadis would want to push on you.
Mhm. So, one of the concerns that a lot of times when we're doing this work is that how do we make sure that the work we're doing is against Hindutva and is not considered Hindu-phobic? So that's a new terminology that I've been seeing being thrown around, and obviously sometimes it's used by trolls, but sometimes it is by concern. And as a community who itself has been targeted because we've been called Islamist, we've been called all sorts of names using our religion to put us in this little box. So what are some of the things, the precautions that the Save India campaign, Save India project is taking to make sure that we don't fall into or people don't accuse us of that?
Sure, that's a good question again. Of course, the first thing that you always do when something like this comes across and looks you in the face is to make your statements correct. And so our statements will always say that we are not against Hindus. We are only targeting this ideology of Hindu extremism that we are terming as Hindutva. So we are very, very clear about that in almost all of our memos, in all of our statements. We make sure that we are very careful with the way that we term what we are going to say to the public. That's one. The other one is, of course, we would love to have our Hindu cousins with us in this fight. And I think it really, whether it is um, extremism happening in Muslims, where Muslims have to stand against them, I think Hindus need to come out in force and stand against the extremism that is happening in the Hindu community at this time. Take Hinduism as a religion back from the extremists. You need to stand against them. And when you're standing against them, you're standing with us. You'll be our friends, right? And so we will work together. So we do have certain Hindu organizations that we work with. Hindus for Human Rights, of course, is one of the ones that's always there. There's Students Against Hindutva Ideology. and some organizations from the Sikh community that we work with. So I think all in all together, when we put out the messaging correctly between them and us, we will get the message out there.
Thank you so much for that insight. And do stay on, inshallah, we'll have you back up again. Next, if we could have, uh, I don't know if our sister Serwi is on. This is somebody that I wanted to introduce to our viewership. Sister Aiden, who many of you know and have seen on our shows before as the team lead, is on hiatus. She is still with the Justice for All Shura, which that is something that I wanted to share with our readers. Each one of our campaigns has an advisory board that is made up of impacted community members, where we bounce off ideas, look for guidance, make sure that they're in touch with the work that we're doing. And so Aiden is still a part of our advisory council for the Save Uighur campaign, but Sister Serwi is our new team lead. And since and perhaps she may be busy right now, since with the genocide determination, we're putting together a whole package together to get out to the community. So in keeping that in mind, and since you all have heard, we started the Sri Lanka task force campaign just this month. This is an exciting development for us. We have been doing Sri Lanka work on behind the scenes for many years, but to put it in a task force format and to make a commitment to that is something that we're really, really looking forward to. We've currently our team lead is Faris Hussain, a Sri Lankan American community member, and our focus during the upcoming months for the Sri Lanka campaign is going to be a UN resolution that is being led by the International Working Group. These are interfaith partners of ours who've been working on Sri Lanka for the past 20 years. And this is going to be our focus for a couple of months, the next 2 months. And as we also work on other aspects here with the new Biden administration coming in, especially putting a stop to these forced cremations where Muslim bodies are being burnt by because due to COVID, and many, some of the stats that are coming out are so surprising that 70% of the COVID bodies burnt due to COVID from Sri Lanka have been Muslim bodies, whereas Muslims only make up 10% of the population. So this is something that you'll be hearing more of, and please do go onto our YouTube channel where we have the mini conference on Sri Lanka, Stop Burning Muslim Bodies, for viewing. So if I could have Adem and Zahir back up on, so we could just talk a little bit about human rights in 2021. What do we've made our asks of the Biden administration. We've been working with the Biden campaign for approximately a year and a half, reaching out on several different issues. We're looking forward to the Muslim ban being revoked tomorrow, as well as getting back, signing the Paris Climate Agreement, as well as other climate change issues, immigration reform, things that affect us domestically. So let me ask both of you, what are you looking forward to on the first day of the Biden administration?
Okay, why don't I answer? Take the first chance at this. For the first day, I'd really like to see him complete his promise of repealing the Muslim ban. I think that will be a good step forward. It will also show that his promise, he does take the promises that he made to the community seriously. I think beyond that, there are several things that he has said, and those need to be followed up in following days. But I'd like to see at least that one thing happen from the part of the Muslim community.
Yeah, so many families separated, brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers, husbands, wives.
Yep.
This is something that has impacted our community at so many levels. There's our Sudanese brothers and sisters, Somali, Irani, it's just the list keeps has been just, and especially here in the DMV, I can tell you, because we have such a large diaspora of Somali and Sudani community members here, that uh, every home has a story to tell. But we were going to have a large gathering at the inauguration that was being planned here by local DC activists. But now we get a call from our largest civil rights organization saying, hey, stay away from the Capitol. So that is something that definitely very different from past inaugurations. What about you, Brother Adam?
Well, I guess I'm very hopeful, but I also think it's time to be uh, a little bit patient with the process. Um, I think that the promises are great, um, and there will be pushback. Um, we live in a capitalist system where often financial interests, and this is true in non-capitalist situations, where you have cronies and oligarchs. That's just a different form of capitalism. But that they have a great influence on policy. So we really are trying to promote human rights and human values in foreign policy. We have a refugee crisis in the world. We've got 70 million displaced people, and a lot of them are being, cooped up somewhere in a camp, or at least living without proper rights and proper future. And we've got the pandemic, which has been, the response has been so mismanaged under the Trump administration. So I am looking forward to a more competent and also more trust-inspiring leadership. And I do think that we will get that, but we've got to be patient because people are going to still be dying in great numbers in the next weeks and perhaps months. I would just say that, as Muslims, we want to see this ethic of human rights and humanitarian, compassionate uh, perspective be part of our culture and our politics. And when we see the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the biggest Muslim organization in the world with 57 countries, when they fail to stand up for the Uyghur, shame on them. And so I think it's very heartening to see American Muslims and American Muslim leaders demand that the OIC start thinking of their Uyghur sisters and brothers and stop parroting the Chinese Communist Party's excuses, national security, and all the rest. And just one last thing about national security is that, we've lived with Guantanamo as a shadow on our reputation, a stain. And people, politics of fear is very powerful everywhere in the world. But this is not a normal legal response to criminal behavior. And besides the torture that happened and has not been punished, we've got people there, some of whom are indeed serious criminals and some of whom are not, but have nowhere to be sent. We've got to have a more mature and more a wiser response to this. So I hope that without losing his political capital and inspiring backlash, I hope that President Biden will be able to close the camp.
Definitely. That would be it's something that his previous administration under Obama, the Obama years, that was a promise that was made, and for that not to happen, this is something that I've been just struggling with in the past. As we understand that there's so much damage been done to the State Department and has been done to other segments of the U.S. government, and to put it all back together and to the ravaging that has taken place in the past 4 years, and to put that together. But to do this is an actual moment that perhaps the Biden administration could have taken to renew, the standard has been lowered so much that I'm scared that if the Biden administration does a little bit, that it will be seen as such great gains. Whereas we were hoping under the Obama administration, but especially when you looked at drone warfare or the criminal justice system and so much, or the deportations, they were at an all-time high then too. So this is something that I'm really struggling with, is that yes, it will be a breath of fresh air to have a normalcy on Capitol Hill. But what if that normalcy is back to the Obama era and back to that hawkish pro-war, pro-military, we need to go get our guns out and go all over the world. So what are you, both of you, feeling about this as we enter into 24 hours to the inauguration? Zahir?
Well, I'm not quite sure um, how to look at that particular area of with the President Biden's administration coming in. I think one of the things that happened with the Obama administration is that there were a lot of things that needed closure. And some of the things that needed closure, unfortunately, were not to our benefit. When I say our benefit, I mean the Muslim benefit. But that closure had to be brought in. And I think he was just doing what the process required at the time. And when President Trump came in, that closure, a lot of that closure had pretty much happened. And so there were just a few loose ends that President Trump had to close on. And so the amount of aggressiveness that we saw against Muslim communities worldwide from the Trump administration was, was perceptively lower. But that was only perceptively lower because the closures had happened in the Obama administration.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with President Biden coming in, hopefully we don't have something new that needs us or any other country to open up any war cries against, whether it's Muslim countries or not, it doesn't really matter, but against any community across the world. And if that doesn't happen, then I believe that the President Biden's administration will see the relative calm that we have seen internationally with President Trump's administration also.
Sorry. I was just going to agree with Brother Zahir that that President Obama inherited a lot, and it was difficult. And every president inherits, and certainly President Biden is inheriting a big mess. But as far as the war that President Bush started, there was certainly one war of choice, which was Iraq. You could make a case for the war in Afghanistan, but we still got troops there, and it also doesn't appear really winnable. The dialogue that we've had with the Taliban has mostly cut out the government of Afghanistan, which is an odd way for us to be proceeding, and it doesn't seem to be resulting in any peace because people are still being blown up in great numbers. So it's Afghanistan is a quagmire. I think, though, that the hunt of Osama bin Laden and eventual execution, basically, was probably necessary for U.S. policy, and we accomplished that under Obama. The drones that many of us disliked, that increased, drone use increased under his administration, they've continued to increase, and people aren't aware of that in Somalia and so many other places. And so this spreading technology, we should be fair-minded about its use and misuse. And then just last, about domestic issues, I do think that, with the gap between rich and poor at an all-time high, and obviously affecting the death toll of the pandemic too, this gap, whether it's racially shaped, racial disparities, or it's simply income, it's obscene. And I do believe that the Obama the Biden administration will address this, and there will be certainly a higher minimum wage available. So that's some hope, I think, that we can look forward to.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've seen in the past 4 years is that a lot of progressive policies that perhaps seemed really far left in under the Obama administration suddenly looked normal under the Trump administration. So as the administration was leaning extreme right, it was very interesting to watch that. And even organizations, even in the Muslim community, I can tell you this, that there were several organizations who have been pushing back against the Obama administration's domestic and foreign policies that were seen as extreme, and this is somebody that we don't want. They ruffled feathers too much. And then suddenly, those were the exact kind of allies you needed under the Trump administration. And I do hope that those voices won't be shunted out again, and they'll continue to be held in respect, and their analysis will be listened to, because this, as we know that, well, to me, it's an empire, and the empire is crumbling, and Trump was just a nail in one of the coffins of that empire. So, so it's interesting. I'm kind of looking forward to them. I'm not looking forward to these Muslim inauguration balls. I hope we don't host one, or our organization doesn't host one. But yeah, I'm just publicly registering that. But let's see. I am hopeful about some things, but that radical inside me has been sort of caged by this advocacy work, and I see that there is a benefit in engagement. Many times that perhaps when you're in the protest lines, you'd feel like, oh my God, I could never engage with this person, right? But the other thing that I think that has bothered me, but I'm not, when I'm seeing some of these appointments that are being made, some give hope, but many just seems like the same old. So let's see. But
I hope that we'll see a progressive, centrist working relationship where they're not just trying to trip the other guy or the other person, and that there's really maybe difficult, but an actual working relationship. So I'm seeing signs of that, but easier said than done.
Easier said. It's like that handing of the baton seems, it's hard for folks to hand that a baton out. And some of our politicians are in their 70s, 80s, and the newer generation that is coming up, some of them are fairly young. So there is that whole generation gap, and how should it be politics as usual, or how do we
Some of the crazies are also young, though, and that's a little disturbing. But when I saw all the soldiers sleeping on the floor of the Capitol Rotunda, I thought, oh, that must be the inauguration ball. So it's a difficult time, and in a way, business as usual wasn't good enough. So maybe we can come out of this learning something.
But at the same time, I think we have to be a little prepared. I think what happened in President Trump's term is as far as Muslim communities and minority communities are concerned, we saw an overwhelming amount of support from some of the groups that were not as vocal before. I mean, I think they were supportive, but not quite as vocal. Mm-hmm. The other thing that happened is a lot of the hate groups, I think became complacent, because they had the hater-in-chief in office, right? And so now, since the hater-in-chief is gone, they might actually double up on their efforts to bring hate out against minorities back into the open.
Definitely. I think that is a very, very, really good point. And this is something that also what I had noticed is that a lot, because the people in opposition to Trump, many people who were foes before we're now forced to work together in the resistance, right? So now with the resistance gone, supposedly, then it's business back to normal. I remember the early days of the Trump administration, and when we'd reach out to allies that normally had the time and resources to help Burma Task Force out, would say, Hena, sorry, we're so busy fighting oppression in our own backyard that we can't focus on this right now. So though maybe some of those resources will not be needed, but I personally think those folks also need to keep their eye on the ball, because this isn't going away. White supremacy is not going away. This threat, what we saw to the Capitol, it's not going away. So it's going to be an interesting 4 years. I remember the night before the Trump inauguration, was very anxious for my community here in the DMV area, but it really pushed us. We organized like we've never organized before, and I think we've learned so much in the past 4 years. Masajid have been organized, organization leaderships, people who wouldn't sit on the same table realize we need this. So this women's groups, it's just been a really amazing learning experience for the past 4 years, and let's see where we head. Would like to learn about what's happening in your guys' backgrounds, New York and Boston, in regards to Muslim organizing.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens as we go forward. I think people have been shell-shocked by all the events recently, but as you said, a lot of the long-term issues remain urgent, and I'm looking forward to the mainstream media not being all Trump all the time. And I hope they give up their habit, of Trump, and that we can focus on these other issues.
Definitely. COVID being the first and foremost. I mean, in my old hometown in Los Angeles, where we have news that there aren't enough burial plots for Muslim families for 2-3 weeks at a time, and the same thing is happening in San Diego. This is a crisis of what was New York looked like perhaps in March or April in 2020. The West Coast looks like, especially specifically Los Angeles County and San Diego County looks like right now. And these are majority Black and brown communities. This is, and where the disparity, even with this vaccine rollout, there's just so much to, watch and see that this is, but at least we don't have that anxiety that we did 4 years ago. What about you, brother Zahir?
Yeah, in the Boston area, I think as far as the community response is concerned, I think the response was very well coordinated between the different the masajid here, at least for the COVID response. Strangely enough, when we did a COVID New England call, people from all over the country joined us, and I still can't understand how they even figured out that this call was happening. But anyways, so from that standpoint, it has been very well done. They've taken responsibility of informing their attendees of the congregation and making sure that they follow up with any person that might have been found to be COVID positive. So that's pretty good. I still think there is a tendency, and this may not only be true in the Boston area, but there is a tendency in the community that the leaders have the responsibility of doing almost everything. So that the involvement, and from a political standpoint, it's seen as political involvement might mean someone running for state office, might mean someone trying to run for Congress, but it does not usually it does not register in the common person's mind that no, political involvement means me telling my representative, me telling my congregation what I think about the issue. And I think that sort of grassroots understanding needs to be there. I need to build it. I'm not sure how we do that.
Yeah, one of the positive things that I've seen is organizing beyond the masajid.
Mhm.
That has that's a new thing, especially in the this millennial generation where people are not only just running for office, smaller offices, not just the oh, I'm going to run for Senate and Congress, but like smaller city councils and school boards, but also organizing beyond the masjid space. So this is a positive and encouraging development for a young community like ours. So definitely looking, hopefully that fervor doesn't stop now that again with the new administration coming in, and the this whole like love for the party, so the Dems are in power, and so we can all relax and go back home. So I'm looking to for me for 2021 for Justice for All. I it's a year I feel of um, revival in some ways. The 2020 sort of like felt like a decade had ended in that, and we have worked on so many new projects. Before it was primarily the Burma Task Force and the skills and things that we've learned from that, but also really making sure that the consistency and the work that we put into BTF is the same thing as happens through each one of the projects, and and I think this with Save Uyghur project and Save India is I think we're getting there, and a Kashmir action with that. One of the things that we're really looking forward to is working more closely with on the ground Kashmiris who and empowering their voices and making sure that they have a voice in this. And yesterday as we were talking to Shafi Rahman, he suggested the same thing is for us to be really highlight some of the newer Rohingya voices from the camps. And I think this is something that I'm looking forward to for us to do so, because otherwise we get stuck in that, the same 4 or 5 usual suspects, and bringing in more leader because we need more Rohingya leadership. We need more Indian Muslim leadership. We that are if however much we can do to help train or help have them give them that spotlight and highlight them. Hopefully, with that panel at the UN that we're planning, young women from India and Kashmir, Rohingya women can speak for themselves, and so thank you for that. And I know you're putting that together. And Brother Zahir, just as the hour wraps up, I'd like you to perhaps share the Hindutva in America series that we're launching in January 26th on India's Republic Day.
Sure. So as I said earlier, that education is key, where we build upon and we bring to mainstream Americans what's been happening in India and also the ideology itself. We've been planning a three-part series of webinars. The first one will be on January 26th. Now, January 26th happens to be what's called the Republic Day in India, when India was declared a republic and the constitution was formally adopted by the parliament, and so that's celebrated in India. But given what's been happening, really, that celebration of the constitution is a little misplaced because the constitution is being torn to shreds by the ideology. So on 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern, please join us. You will be hearing from three experts, one from India who will talk about Hindutva and what it might mean for America as it's being imported here. You'll also hear from one American and one Canadian leader who will talk about how Hindutva is affecting us right here in the United States or in Canada. 1 week after that, we will come back with another webinar, which will be Hindutva in schools. And believe it or not, they are trying to teach your children history as is written by these extremists. And then 2 weeks after the 26th, we will have the last session in the series, which will be on Hindutva in the workplace, because it's also affecting all of us in the workplace. Our Dalit cousins will, of course, attest to that very, very strongly. In California, what happened with them, where a young Dalit woman was really not allowed to progress on her job. But we will talk about it. So please join us.
Yes, this is something that is a focus of ours for 2021. We want this. Hindutva is an ideology that needs to be fought by all of us, regardless of whether we're Muslim or not. And it's spreading fast in the United States. And so an exposure of that, just like Nazism. If Nazism was reared its head again in the United States, it should be exposed. Any of these hateful ideologies.
Or Trumpism, right?
Or Trumpism, exactly. So, well, thank you to both of you. We're at the end of the hour. Thank you for being here with us, and really enjoyed the conversation. It's good to, we have all these guests from all over, and we just have such brilliant minds working for the organization. So thank you, both of you, for being here and your commentary and your work. So Assalamu alaikum, and to all of our audience, thank you for being here and watching. Assalamu alaikum. Peace to all of you.